Asterisk in the grand halls of Versailles asterisk, where golden mirrors once reflected the glory of absolute monarchy. A different kind of reflection emerges by 1774, one of decay, corruption, and human frailty. The man known as Louis the Well-Beloved would die as Louis the Hated, his body consumed not only by disease, but also by the poison of his own reign. His decaying corpse became a symbol of a monarchy devouring itself from within. The reign of Louis XV stands as one of history's most dramatic reversals of fortune, a cautionary tale of unchecked power and abandoned responsibility. When smallpox claimed him in May 1774, it did so with such cruelty that even his loyal servants fled the stench of his decomposing flesh. This horrific death was the final act in a decades-long tragedy, setting the stage for one of history's most devastating revolutions. To understand the true horror of Louis XV's end, we must examine how France's most promising young monarch transformed into one of its most despised rulers. His story begins asterisk not with a corrupted king gasping for breath in his fetid deathbed, but with a 5-year-old child thrust onto the throne of Europe's most powerful nation. The contrast between the innocent boy king and the diseased tyrant reveals the complete moral and physical collapse that would define his reign. The year 1715 marked an ending and a beginning for France. Louis XIV, the Sun King, whose reign lasted a staggering 72 years, finally died, leaving behind a legacy of absolute power and crushing debt. His chosen heir, 5-year-old great-grandson Louis XV, inherited not just a crown but the enormous expectations of a nation that had known only one king for nearly 75 years. Orphaned early, Louis was governed by a regency under Philippe d'Orléans, a period marked by economic recovery. Raised with a fine education, Louis was tutored in languages, history, mathematics, and the arts of war and diplomacy. His sharp intellect signaled promise, and both the French court and people viewed the boy king with hope, believing his reign could herald a new golden age. When Louis XV officially began ruling in 1723, he became beloved for his handsome demeanor and apparent intelligence, embodying the promise of renewal after the rigid final decades of his predecessor's reign. The nickname Louis le Bien-Aimé, Louis the Well-Beloved, was bestowed genuinely. In the early years of his personal rule, Louis married Marie Lesciuska, daughter of the deposed King of Poland, solidifying France's place in European politics. Their union appeared based on affection, quickly producing heirs to secure succession. Louis also expressed interest in the sciences and arts, supporting philosophers and inventors while maintaining France's cultural dominance. However, warning signs of trouble loomed. Louis displayed a troubling tendency toward indecision and reliance on favorites and mistresses for political guidance. Unlike his predecessor, who cultivated an image of divine authority, Louis XV seemed more interested in pleasure than the burdens of kingship, leading to a court renowned for libertinism. Asterisk, the transformation from beloved to hated asterisk did not occur overnight, but rather through disasters, scandals, and poor decisions that eroded the public's faith in their king. Each crisis exposed his inability to provide the strong leadership France needed. What began as a promising reign slowly descended into a nightmare of military defeat, financial ruin, and moral corruption, ultimately consuming not just the king, but the institution of monarchy itself. The first major test of Louis XV's reign arrived with the War of Austrian Succession in 1740, dragging on for 8 brutal years. France entered to counter British power and support its ally Prussia. But the war quickly revealed fundamental weaknesses within Louis's military campaigns. Unlike the strategy of Louis XIV, these wars lacked clear objectives and direction, reflecting the king's uncertainty and growing government dysfunction. The financial toll was staggering, requiring new taxes and loans that exacerbated France's debt. The French military, once the terror of Europe, suffered humiliating defeats, being forced to withdraw from key territories. Louis's personal involvement, while initially earning him popularity, underscored his inadequacy as a military leader, with decisions swayed more by court intrigue than sound strategy. During this turbulent period, His relationship with his wife deteriorated while he became increasingly involved with notable mistresses, particularly Madame de Pompadour, who became both lover and trusted advisor. This arrangement scandalized both the court and the public, seen as evidence of the king's moral decay and poor judgment, undermining confidence in the monarchy's ability to govern. The War of Austrian Succession ended in 1748 with the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, which returned most conquered territories despite France's sacrifices. The French people were outraged, believing their sons had died for a pointless conflict while their taxes were wasted. This dissatisfaction heralded a shift in public opinion. The epithet well-beloved became increasingly hollow among cynical subjects. In response to growing criticism, Louis withdrew from public life, surrounding himself with sycophants who echoed his desires, further isolating him from reality. The divide between the luxurious world of Versailles and the harsh realities faced by ordinary citizens deepened throughout the 1750s. More damaging than military failures was the perception that Louis cared more for pleasure than the welfare of his kingdom. Exaggerated but truthful stories of his extravagant spending on mistresses fueled popular resentment. The construction of the Petit Trianon as a retreat for Madame de Pompadour epitomized his priorities. Personal indulgence over public duty. The 7 Years' War 1756-1763 proved an even greater disaster than its predecessor, pitting France against Britain and Prussia for colonial supremacy. French forces were quickly outmatched, leading to the loss of most North American colonies, including Canada and Louisiana, a humiliation Louis XV never lived down. As France's global empire crumbled, the king appeared more concerned with personal affairs than with defending national interests. Continuous warfare strained France's finances, pushing it to the brink of bankruptcy. New taxes burdened the common people, while the nobility and clergy retained exemptions, breeding resentment against both the monarchy and privileged classes. Louis's failure to implement meaningful financial reforms had devastating consequences. By the war's end, the transformation from beloved to hated was complete. The Treaty of Paris stripped France of most of its colonial empire, reducing it to a second-rate power. The king, once a symbol of hope, became a figure of national decline and humiliation, laying the foundation for revolutionary sentiment that would eventually obliterate the monarchy. In the wake of the war, Louis retreated further into personal indulgence. As France faced mounting issues, the king's daily life became increasingly disconnected from governance, consumed by hunting, entertaining mistresses, and meaningless ceremonies. This disconnect fueled criticism of his reign and heightened the influence of mistresses like Madame de Pompadour and later Madame du Barry in making crucial decisions about policy. Religious tensions contributed to his declining popularity, particularly with the Jesuit expulsion in 1764, which alienated traditional Catholic supporters. Economic problems deepened, despite reform attempts by finance ministers. The inequitable tax system and a growing national debt hampered progress, while the king's indifference damaged his reputation among emerging middle-class and progressive nobility, who viewed reform as vital for France's future. Social unrest surged amid food shortages and economic hardship, leading to protests. Instead of addressing grievances, Louis's administration resorted to military force, further alienating the populace. The king, once seen as a father figure, transformed into an oppressor. Enlightenment thinkers began to challenge absolute monarchy and divine right, with Louis's own failures exemplifying the corruption associated with royal power. After the failed assassination attempt by Damiens in 1757, which revealed popular hostility towards the king, the monarchy's prestige continued to erode. International humiliations persisted, such as France's failure to prevent the partition of Poland, further damaging royal credibility. By the late 1760s, the gap between the monarchy and its subjects had dangerously widened. Louis XV ruled over a population that had largely lost faith in his ability to govern effectively. What started as a reign full of promise had devolved into a tragic tale of decline, where the well-beloved king caused his own downfall through excess and indifference, setting the stage for the revolutionary change that was to come. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to support our work. Never miss an upload. Like this vid, drop a comment and share it with others to help us grow this historical community.